Good day. Hello, Maria. I didn't see anybody there for a minute, but that's okay. People check in when they do, and that's good. It's Tuesday, July 9th, 2024. Hello, CJ, CW, and Denise. Okay, everybody's warming up. So is my son's dog out there warming up with his howls. Anyway, so today we're going to continue with Saint Catherine of Siena, and this is a good one, just like yesterday's. A lot of meat in the things that we read, and good things to take home and practice with. And especially for me, as I was contemplating, I got an email this morning from YouTube that they removed one of my masses in January of last year for medical disinformation. So the fight continues for truth. And I can take a class, though, to, well, I don't know what kind of class they're talking about, but I'm sure you do. And I'm sure I really do. I'm just wink, wink, nod, nod. But that's okay. There's 364 other ones out there, or maybe a little less. I did miss a few days last year. All right, so let's begin with morning prayers, and then we'll continue with Saint Catherine of Siena. So basically, they don't want you saying anything about that. And we all know what's happening as a result. I don't know, maybe they're trying to save some of the souls for their side, for their harvest. And honestly, you'd have to be pretty much blocked by mortal sins not to be able to know or see the medical situation in this country and in the world, for that matter. It takes some time. You don't realize how bad and how negatively influenced the entire world is on so many subjects. That's really run by evil entities. And, that's why we have to pray. And as St. Catherine will say in a little bit, we have to love our neighbor. In nomine Dei, Matronam Nostrae, Deum Iesum Christum, et Deum Pautrem Spiritum Sanctum. Let us place ourselves in the presence of the Trinitarian Theophany, and in Catholic contemplation venerate the Divine Family. Most holy and venerable Trinitarian Theophany, one divine family, I believe that thou art here present. I venerate thee with the deepest humility. I render to thee with my whole heart the homage which is due to thee. O Trinitarian Theophany, relying on thine infinite goodness and promises, I hope to obtain pardon of my sins, the help of thy grace, and life everlasting, through the merits of Deum Iesum Christum et Dea Matronam Nostrae. O Trinitarian Theophany, I love thee above all things, with my whole heart and soul, because thou art all good and worthy of all love. I love my neighbor as myself for love of thee, and I forgive all who have injured me and ask pardon of all whom I have injured. Let us thank the Trinitarian Theophany for the many graces that we receive and offer ourselves and our sufferings up to heaven. O O Trinitarian Theophany, I most humbly thank thee for all the favors thou hast bestowed upon me to the present moment. It is again thanks to thy bounty that I should live to see this day, and I desire to employ it solely in thy service. I consecrate to thee all my thoughts, words, actions, and sufferings of this day. Sanctify them, that there may be none that is not animated by thy love, or that would not tend to thy greater glory. Let us make a firm resolution to avoid evil and to do good, and let us beg of the Trinitarian Theophany the graces which are necessary to us. O most holy Trinitarian Theophany, thou knowest my weakness, and that I am unable to do anything good without the help of thy grace. Deny me not thy grace, proportionate to my necessities. Give me strength to avoid everything which thou forbiddest, to practice the good which thou hast commanded, and enable me patiently to bear all the trials which it may please thee to send me. And we'll learn about not only to bear the trials, but to desire suffering. And she explains how. Let us also ask Deum Matronam Nostrae. I place myself under thy protection. I throw myself with confidence into the arms of thy compassion. Be to me, O Mother of Mercy, my refuge in distress, my consolation in suffering, now and at the hour of my death. O most holy Trinitarian Theophany, Deum Matronam Nostrae, et Deum Iesum Christum, et Deum Patrum Spiritum Sanctum. I am heartily sorry for having offended thee, and I detest all my sins because I dread the loss of heaven and the pains of hell. But most of all because they offend thee, O most holy Trinitarian Theophany, Deum Matronam Nostrae, et Deum Iesum Christum, et Deum Patrum Spiritum Sanctum, who are all good and deserving of all my love. I firmly resolve, with the help of thy grace, to confess my sins, to do penance, and to amend my life. We continue with the Treatise of Divine Providence, and Deum Patrum Spiritum Sanctum is still speaking with St. Catherine of Siena. And in there's two subchapters we have here. How very pleasing to the Trinitarian Theophany is the willing desire to suffer for the Trinitarian Theophany, and for Deum Iesum Christum in particular. Very pleasing to me, dearest daughter, is the willing desire to bear every pain and fatigue, even unto death, for the salvation of souls. For the more the soul endures, the more she shows that she loves me. Loving me, she comes to know more of my truth. And the more she knows, the more pain and intolerable grief she feels at the offenses committed against me. Thou didst ask me to sustain thee, and to punish the faults of others in thee. And thou didst not remark that thou wast really asking for love, light, and knowledge of truth, since I have already told thee that by the increase of love grows grief and pain. Wherefore, he that grows in love grows in grief. Therefore I say to you all, that you should ask, and it will be given you. For I deny nothing to him who asks of me in truth. Consider that the love of divine charity is so closely joined in the soul with perfect patience, that neither can leave the soul without the other. For this reason, if the soul elect to love me, she should elect to endure pains for me, in whatever mode or circumstance I may send them to her. Patience cannot be proved in any other way than by suffering. And patience is united with love, as has been said. Therefore, bear yourselves with manly courage, for unless you do so, you will not prove yourselves to be spouses of my truth and faithful children, nor of the company of those who relish the taste of my honor and the salvation of souls. Unquote. And here the next subchapter is how every virtue and every defect is obtained by means of our neighbor. I wish also that thou shouldest know that every virtue is obtained by means of thy neighbor, and likewise every defect. He therefore who stands in hatred of me does an injury to his neighbor and to himself, who is his own chief neighbor. And this injury is both general and particular. It is general because you are obliged to love your neighbor as yourself, and loving him, you ought to help him spiritually, soulfully, with prayer, counseling him with words, and assisting him both soulfully and temporally, according to the need in which he may be, at least with your good will, if you have nothing else. A man, therefore, who does not love does not help him, and thereby does himself an injury. For he cuts off from himself grace, and injures his neighbor by depriving him of the benefit of the prayers and of the sweet desires that he is bound to offer for him to me. Thus, every act of help that he performs should proceed from the charity which he has through love of me. And every evil also is done by means of his neighbor. For if he does not love me, he cannot be in charity and charity with his neighbor. And thus all evils derive from the soul's deprivation of love of me and her neighbor. Whence, inasmuch as such a man does no good, it follows that he must do evil. To whom does he do evil? First of all, to himself, and then to his neighbor. Not against me, for no evil can touch me, except insofar as I count done to me that which he does to himself. To himself he does the injury of sin, which deprives him of grace, and worse than this he cannot do to his neighbor. Him he injures in not paying him the debt which he owes him of love, with which he ought to help him by means of prayer and holy desire offered to me for him. This is an assistance which is owed in general to every rational creature, but its usefulness is more particular when it is done to those who are close at hand, under your eyes, as to whom I say you are all obliged to help one another by word and doctrine, and the example of good works, and in every other respect in which your neighbor may be seen to be in need, counseling him exactly as you would yourselves, without any passion of self-love. And he, a man not loving God, does not do this, because he has no love towards his neighbor, and by not doing it, he does him, as thou seest, a special injury. And he does him evil, not only by not doing him the good that he might do to him, but by doing him a positive injury and a constant evil. In this way, sin causes a physical and a mental injury. The mental injury is already done when the sinner has conceived pleasure in the idea of sin and hatred of virtue. That is pleasure from sensual self-love, which has deprived him of the affection of love which he ought to have towards me and his neighbor, as has been said. And after he has conceived, he brings forth one sin after another against his neighbor, according to the diverse ways which may please his perverse sensual will. Sometimes it is seen that he brings forth cruelty, and that both in general and in particular. His general cruelty is to see himself and other creatures in danger of death and damnation through privation of grace. And so cruel is he that he reminds neither himself nor others of the love of virtue and hatred of vice. Being thus cruel, he may wish to extend his cruelty still further. That is, not content with not giving an example of virtue, the villain also usurps the office of the demons, tempting, according to his power, his fellow creatures to abandon virtue for vice. This is cruelty towards his neighbors, for he makes himself an instrument to destroy life and to give death. Cruelty towards the body has its origin in cupidity, which not only prevents a man from helping his neighbor, but causes him to seize the goods of others, robbing the poor creatures. Sometimes this is done by the arbitrary use of power, and at other times by cheating and fraud, his neighbor being forced to redeem to his own loss his own goods, and often indeed his own person. O miserable vice of cruelty, which will deprive the man who practices it of all mercy, unless he turn to kindness and benevolence toward his neighbor. Sometimes the sinner brings forth insults on which often follows murder, sometimes also impurity against the person of his neighbor, by which he becomes a brute beast full of stench. And in this case he does not poison only one, but whoever approaches him with love or in conversation is poisoned. Against whom does pride bring forth evils? Against the neighbor, through love of one's own reputation, whence comes hatred of the neighbor, reputing oneself to be greater than he, and in this way is injury done to him. And if a man be in a position of authority, he produces also injustice and cruelty and becomes a retailer of the flesh of men. O dearest daughter, grieve for the offense against me, and weep over these corpses, so that by prayer the bands of their death may be loosened. See now that in all places and in all kinds of people sin is always produced against the neighbor, and through his medium. In no other way could sin ever be committed, either secret or open. A secret sin is when you deprive your neighbor of that which you ought to give him. An open sin is where you perform positive acts of sin, as I have related to thee. It is therefore indeed the truth that every sin done against me is done through the medium of the neighbor. Unquote. Tomorrow we will continue with how virtues are accomplished by means of our neighbor, and how it is that virtues differ to such an extent in creatures. Again, it always, the saints, at least the ones who have reached the level that these have that I've been reading from, it's all about the virtues. Study, practice. Deum vobiscum, et quoque apote, oremus. O Trinitarian Theophany, the Creator and Redeemer of all the faithful, grant to the souls of thy servants and handmaids the remission of all their sins, that they may obtain by loving prayers the forgiveness which they have always desired. Who livest and reignest with thee, one Trinitarian Theophany, forever and ever. Suscipe Deum Patrum Spiritum Sanctum hoc immaculatum hostium, quam ego indignus famulos tuos offeritibi Deum meum vivum et verum, pro in humilibus peccatis et offensionibus et negligentis meis, et pro omnibus circumtantibus, sed pro omnibus fidelibus Catholicorum vivis atque, Defunctis ut mihi et idis proficiet ad salutem. Deum qui humanae substantiae dignitatem mirabilita condidis et mirabilis reformasti da nobis, perivius ad quae et divini mysterium, eius divinitatis esse consortes, qui humanitatis nostrae fieri denotis est pateceps, Deum Iesum Christum Filium, qui tecum vivit et regnat in unitate Deum Patrum, Spiritum Sanctum. Offeremus tibi Deum calicem salutaris tuum de bacantes clementium, ut consueto divinae majestatis tuae, pro nostra totius mundi salute, cum adore suavitatis ascendat. In spiritu humilitatis et in animo contrito suscipiam rate Deum Iesum Christum, et sacrifiet sacrificium nostrum et consuetuto hodie, uplacia tibi Deum matronam nostrae, et Deum Patrum Spiritum Sanctum. Veni Sanctificator. Deum Patrum Spiritum Sanctum, et sanctificit oblata prosequendo, et capere hoc sacrificium tuo sancto nomini praeparatum. Suscipe Sancta Trinitas, Sancta Oblationem, cum tibi afferemus, a memoriam passionis, resurrectionis et ascensionis, Deum Iesum Christum, et in honorem Deum matronam nostrae, et a Papa Peter Sanctorum, et Istorum, et omnium Sanctorum, ut idis proficiet ad honorem nobis autem ad salutem, et idi pro nobis intercedere dignentur in caelis, quorum memoriam agimus in teris per illum Christum Deum nostrum. Orate, ut meum ac vestrum sacrificium acceptabile fiat ab Deum Patrum Spiritum Sanctum. Suscipiat Deum Iesum Christum sacrificium de manibus tuis ad laudem et gloriam nominis sui ad utilitatem quoque nostrum totiusque ecclesiae suae sanctae. Deum vobiscum, quoque apud te, suus in corda, habemus ad Deum. Gratias agamus Deum nostrum, dignum et justum est. Te igitur clementes in matere pater, et Deum matronum nostrae, et Deum Patrum Spiritum Sanctum, per Deum Iesum Christum Filium tuum Deum nostrae, supplices, rogamus ac petimus. Uti accepta, habeas haec et sanctificas, haec sanctam sacrificium ilibata. In primis quae tibi afferemus pro ecclesiam tuam sanctam catholicam, quam pacificare custodire honorare et regere dignitas toto peterarum atque catholicae, memento Deum famelorum fameronceturum. We pray for the sick and the suffering. We pray for Katie and Gage, Neil and Earl Lively, Maria Josephina Mose, Mark Jr., Henry, Barbara, and Benedict Santa Croce, Casey, Mr. Nobody, Ann Bultink, the Cantu and Duarte families, Jenna, Lena, Lori, Aaron, and family, Maria and the Lineweber family, the Cahill, Kendrick, Dasco, Nye, Tafur, and Began, and Wolf families. We pray for Mr. Nobody to receive the funding and strength needed to complete the first Sede Vacantis Catholic Council office in Monastery of Illinois. We pray for an end to all governmental allowance or sanctioning of abortion, transgenderism, transhumanism, child trafficking, child abuse, any kind of ritual abuse, anywhere, place, or time. We pray for the establishment of a Catholic monarchy with a sound Catholic system of labor, human value, medium of exchange. We pray for courageous men to step forward and as Catholic leaders of a Catholic society. We ask that, quote-unquote, all gay marriage be banned and a reversal of the feminist ideology, that all pornography and the OnlyFans platform be banned. We pray to shut down all electronic gateways and portals that cause harm and disruption in the world and the functions of harmony that was designed by the Trinitarian Theophany. We also ask you to destroy the satanic document of Vatican law that is the Jewish Talmud, that you destroy Rome and the Vatican and transfer the authority of the Catholic Church. Recognize the transfer of the authority, which has already occurred, of the Catholic Church to Portugal. We ask you to release the souls controlled by the demons Lilith, Asmodeus, any Jew or Freemason, and let those souls find their way here. We also ask you to block the passage of any so-called pandemic treaty by the WHO. All these things we ask in accordance with the divine and holy will of the Trinitarian Theophany. Et omnium circumstantium quorum tibi fides quo nita est nota devotio pro quibus tibi efferimus vel qui tibi frontox sacrificim laudis pro se suis omnibus pro redemptione anamarum suarum pro spe salutis et calamitatis suae tibi credum vota sua aeterno Deum vivo et vero communicantes et memorantes in primis gloriosae semper Dei matronam nostrae et de Deum Iesum Christum et Beatorum martyrium torum Papae Sancti Petri et Sancti Lucia et Sancti Jacinta et Sancti Francisco et Sancti Juan Diego et omnium sanctorum tuorum quorum meritis praecibus quaeras ut in omnibus protectiones tuae munum auxilio periendum Christum Deum nostrum quam oblatione te Deum Patrum Spiritum Sanctum in omnibus consecratem acceptabilem fecere dignitis ut nobis corpum et sanguinem fiat didictissimi filium tuum Deum Iesum Christum qui pridie quam pastoretur recepit apamnum in sancta sac venerabilis manus suas et derivatis oculis in caelum ate Deum Patrum Spiritum Sanctum suum omnipotentem tibi gratias agens consecravit fregit didique luminis sui dicens acipite et manducat ex hoc omnes hoc est enim corpus meum simini modo postquam ceremonia est accipienser hunc preclarum calicem in sancta sac venerabilis manus suas idem tibi gratias agens Deum Patrum Spiritum Sanctum consecravit didique luminis sui dicens accipite et bibite ex omnes hic est enim calix sanguinis mei mysterium fidei quae pro nobis et pro multis effundetur in remissionem peccatorum haec et quotescum perficeritis in me monum facietis. Unde et memores Deum nos servitui, sed plebs tua sancta justum Christum filium tuum Deum nostrae. Tam beate passiones nec non et benferis resurrectionis sed et in caelos gloriosae ascensionis afferimus prae clarae maiestati tuae de tuis donis actatis, supra quae propitio axareno vultur respicieri digneris. Supplices te regamus Deum Patrum Spiritum Sanctum iube hec preferibam manus tuum ut quod ex hoc ataris participationem sacrosanctum Deum filium tuum corpus et sanguinem sincerimus omni benedictione caelestia gratia Dei per amor periendum Christum Deum nostrae. We pray for those who have died. We especially pray for Ron O'Brien, for whom this Mass is being offered. Ipsis Deum et omnibum in Christum, quis gentibum locum refugere illu, qui se paucis und odor est prac amor periendum Christum Deum nostrum. per quem haec omnia Deum Iesum Christum semper bona creas, sanctificas, vivicas, consecratis et praestas nobis. Per ipsum et cum ipso et in ipso, est ibi Deum Mater omnipotente in unitate Deum Patrum Spiritum Sanctum, omnis honor et gloria. Ave Dea, matronam nostrae, gratia plena Deum Patrum Spiritum Sanctum tecum. Dea matronam nostrae, materam Deum Iesum Christum, misericordia nobis, peccatoribus nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Libera nos, quae sumus Deum Patrum Spiritum Sanctum ab omnibus malis, praeteritis, praesentibus et futuris, et intercedente beata gloriosa semper Deum matronam nostrae, cum Papa Petrum Sanctorum et omnibus sanctis da propitius pacem in diebus nostris, ut opi misericordiae tuae aduiti et peccato simus semper liberi et ab omni perturbatione securi. Periendum Deum nostrum Iesum Christum Filium Tuum Deum nostrum, qui ticum vivit et reinat in unitate Deum Patrum Spiritum Sanctum, per aeternam. Pax Deum Iesum Christum sit semper vobiscum, et quoque apotei, haec cum extio et consecratio copris et sanguinis Deum Iesum Christum, fiat accipientibus nobis in ad salutem aeternam. Pax tecum, et quoque apotei, Deum Iesum Christum, qui ex voluntate Deum matronam nostrae, quoprante Deum Patrum Spiritum Sanctum, per mortem tuum unum vivificasti, libera me per hoc sacro sanctum corpus et sanguinum tuum ab omnibus iniquitatibus meis, et universis malis, et fac me tue semper inharare mandatis, et ate numquam separari permittas, qui cum eo dem Deum matronam nostrae, et Deum Patrum Spiritum Sanctum, vivis et reinam aeternam. Perceptio copris tui Deum Iesum Christum, quod ego indignus sumere, presumo, non mihi proveniat in judicium et condemnationem, sed pro tui pietate prosit mihi ad tutamentum, mentis et copris, et ad medelam percipiendam, qui vivis et reinas cum Deum matronam nostrae in unitate Deum Patrum Spiritum Sanctum. In panem caelestem, accipiem et nomen Deum Iesum Christum invocabo. Dea matronam nostra non sunt dignos, ut dissertate meum, santanto de querbo et senabitur anima mea. Deum Iesum Christum non sunt dignos, ut dissertate meum, santanto de querbo et senabitur anima mea. Deum Patrum Spiritum Sanctum non sunt dignos, ut dissertate meum, santanto de querbo et senabitur anima mea. Corpus Deum nostrum Iesum Christum custodiet anima mea. Quid retribuam Deum Iesum Christum pro omnibus, quae retribuit mihi? Calicem salutaris accipiem et nomen Deum Patrum Spiritum Sanctum invocabo. Laudans invocabo Dea matronam nostrae et ab inimicis meis salvus ero. Sanguis Deum nostrum, Iesum Christum custodiet anima mea. Corpus Deum nostrum Iesum Christum custodiet animam tuam. Quotore sumpsimus Deum Iesum Christum pudimenti capiamis et immunene temperae fit nobis remedium sempiternum. Corpus tuum Deum Iesum Christum quod sumpsit sanguis quam patavi heribus sceribus visceribus. Me se presta ut in me non remeniat scelerum macula, quem pura ad sancta reficerunt sacramenta. Deum vobiscum et quoque apud. Oremus. May the prayer of thy suppliants profit the souls of thy servants and handmaids. We beseech thee, O Trinitarian Theophany, that thou mayest free them from all sins and make them sharers in thy redemption, who livest and reignest with thee, one divine family, forever and ever. Deum vobiscum et quoque apud te, ite mise est. Deum gratia. Placia tibi sancta Trinitam obsequium servitutis meae, et praesta, ut sacrificium cor oculis tuae, maestatis in nus autoritibus et acceptabili me, quet omnibus per oculibus ilut oculi siti miserante propitiae per Christum Deum nostrum. Sanctificat vos omnipotens Deum, Matronam et Filium et Spiritum Sanctum, Deum Matronam Nostrae et Deum Iesum Christum et Deum Patrum Spiritum Sanctum. Gratias. O most holy Trinitarian Theophany, I believe, I venerate, I hope, and I love thee. I beg of thee pardon for those who do not believe, do not venerate, do not hope, and do not love thee. Most holy Trinitarian Theophany, I venerate thee profoundly, and I offer to thee the most precious body, blood, soul, and divinity of Deum Iesum Christum, present here in reparation for the outrages, sacrileges, and indifference by which he himself is offended, and through the infinite merits of his most sacred heart and immaculate heart of Deum Matronam Nostrae, I beg of thee the conversion of poor sinners. In nomine Deum Matronam Nostrae, et Deum Iesum Christum, et Deum Patrum Spiritum Sanctum. Gratias. thank you for joining us today. Please say your Rosary 150, perform your Catholic contemplation, and again, have your neighbor in mind with all of these works that we do. Please go and sanctify all those who you meet, and we'll see you tomorrow.